Welcome to Improve Your English Writing, video number 46, where I'll be discussing parentheses. And specifically, I'll be discussing a sentence element with internal commas, which is rule number 48, and a sentence element which is not grammatically related to the sentence, which is rule number 49. If you'd like to get notifications to this series, please click subscribe. If you like the video or think others will find it useful, please click like. And check out links to books and videos in the description, like a link to the companion volume here. So let's get to rule number 48. So parentheses may, I want to stress may, separate a sentence element that contains internal commas and requires separation with punctuation. So basically parentheses are an option. You use parentheses when dashes are too strong of a break. See videos 37-25. Basically, when you have a sentence element which needs separation with punctuation, you'd usually separate things with commas. But when you have an element that needs to be separated that already has commas, you basically have one of two choices. You have parentheses, which basically de-emphasizes the element, or you use dashes, which actually emphasize the element. So I'm just saying, you may use parentheses, and when dashes are too strong. And for the dashes, go see video 37-25. So here's some examples. In three major cities, Chicago, Detroit, and New York, crime decreased last quarter. So here, the sentence element would normally be, you need to separate with punctuation. You can't use commas because it already contains commas. So you have two choices. You have parentheses or dashes. So in this case, you don't want to emphasize the element, so you use parentheses. We, Tom, Sue, and Bill, form the legal team for the prominent client. So here you have a sentence element which needs to be separated with punctuation, but it already contains commas, so you need to use, once again, parentheses or dashes. And since dashes, just the writing style that you're personally writing in has determined that dashes are too strong, you use parentheses. Rule number 48 is use parentheses when a word, number, phrase, or clause is not grammatically related to the sentence. This often occurs with these situations: a parenthetical comment, an InText citation or reference, definition of an abbreviation, or a run-in list. So I'm basically saying these situations right here, you normally have a element, word, number, phrase, or clause which is not grammatically related. And when it's not grammatically related, you use parentheses. So here's an example. Remember, I'm actually just going to run these in order of when they occur: parenthetical comment, InText citation, definition of an abbreviation, a run-in list. Just going to cover these situations. So here's the situation of a parenthetical comment. So you would say, like, evictions normally take 60, and then you're just inserting the number. 60 is a parenthetical, so since this is parenthetical right here, 60, you surround it with parentheses. So the eviction normally takes 60, and then in parentheses 60 days to process. By Friday, perhaps Monday, the job will be completed. So this parenthetical phrase is not grammatically related to the sentence, so therefore we will separate it or use parentheses around it. And then finally, the last example is, I fell asleep in the afternoon sun. Then you have this parenthetical clause, which is, I routinely forgot sunblock back then. And you surround that parenthetical clause with parentheses. Just my side note is that for parenthetical comment at the end of a sentence consisting of a brief independent clause, which this is, capitalize it and place the period inside the closing parentheses. This usually the biggest question is, does the period go inside or outside the parentheses in this case? It actually goes inside. And how I always remember that is that essentially a parenthetical comment, or this parenthetical clause, is this parenthetical comment is a separate sentence enclosed in parentheses. So that's how I remember it. It's an entire sentence enclosed in parentheses. So that's how you do a parenthetical clause at the end of a sentence. So let's move on to InText source citations. Now I'll do a whole series of videos or a number of videos on InText citations. So I believe those will be about videos 70 to 74. The numbers may vary a little bit. I have, I'm only on video 45, but I have outlined the rest of the videos, and this is currently their numbering. So if you want to see more about InText citations, please go to these videos or videos in about that number. So here's some examples. The effects of the verbal abuse are immense. Jones 2073. So effectively, an InText source citation is when you're writing in academic papers, you will list the source. You're actually listing the source in the text, and this is one of the formats. There are different formats that are used, but this InText source citation is always placed in parentheses, and this is how it's done. So basically, InText source citations are put in parentheses. Once again, there are different formats. Go see these videos for the formatting in the various, Chicago manual styles, MLA, APA style. This is just an example of one of them. And here's an example of, you've actually seen this in the videos. Do not overuse parentheses, rule number 17. So here I'm actually doing an in-text reference. So since this is an in-text reference, I surround it with parentheses. And here's the in-text reference. It's surrounded with parentheses. Definition. You put the definition of an abbreviation in parentheses. So for this, see video 60, rule number 91 for more about abbreviations. But here's an example. Who is the company's public information officer? And then you're going to define public information officer. You can define that abbreviation. When you define that abbreviation, you put it inside parentheses. Another example, the Chicago Manual of Style. And then someone is defining the abbreviation Chicago Manual of Style. You put that inside parentheses. Is a widely used and comprehensive style guide. So you use basically parentheses with abbreviations or to define an abbreviation. The next case is a run-in list. For more about run-in lists, see video number 63. But effectively, you enclose the numbers or lowercase letters that separate run-in list items in parentheses. Numbers are typically used unless the run-in list is an APA style or it is part of a numbered list. So usually use numbers in parentheses unless you have APA, or you're already in a numbered list and you need to separate the items, then you use letters. So let's look at some examples. If you're not sure what a run-in list is, well, here's an example. So this is an example of a run-in list, okay? Not that this is some text. This is an example. So the run-in list is basically, it's a list of items, and then each item is separated, has a number or a letter attached to it. So, the example is capitalized, after colon, if 1, the word is a proper noun, 2, the 2 or more related sentences, or 3, 1 or more sentences follow that require special emphasis. So here, each run-in list element is, it is the number you can close the number of the run-in list item in parentheses, or you could use letters, but traditionally numbers are used. Once again, use letters if APA or it's already a run-in list. So I have that example here. So I'll just say that, oh, that's right. APA would use lowercase letters. So here's an example. Let's say you already had, it was already, the run-in list is part of a numbered, is already part of a numbered list. So here you'd say, number 2, this meaning, for this example, that means a number 2, so there would already be a number 1 above this. So, but for some reason, the item number 2 has a run-in list. So you'd say the applicant forgot to provide the following information. A, contact phone number, B, photocopy of academic degree, or C, numbered references. You can see if you were numbering items and then in a run-in list you use numbered items, it can become confusing. So all that effectively what you're doing is that if you're using a numbered list and you need to do a run-in list, you need to switch between numbers and letters just to avoid confusion. That's the reason why you use letters. So, but basically, I always say I default to using numbers for a run-in list. Oh, and I'm just saying this is the example of a run-in list. So then some finer points about parentheses. Back-to-back parentheses. Back-to-back parentheses should be avoided. But further information about back-to-back parentheses. But if basically you're going to have one set of information in parentheses and another set of information in parentheses. And I'm saying if the information in the back-to-back parentheses, I'm just going to call it that, is unrelated, then you have two basic situations of how to format it. One, you can separate, why is that text bigger? I'm not too sure. Yeah, you do back-to-back parentheses separated by a space. So like this. Now I said avoid back-to-back parentheses. I just said avoid. I didn't say you can't do it. But when you have unrelated information that is back-to-back, you could do this. And always remember, you do separate back-to-back parentheses with a space. So if you have unrelated information, it's back-to-back with the information in parentheses separated by a space. Or what you can do is you could do a single set of parentheses with the information separated with a semicolon. So it would be this. You put the parentheses, you'd have the information here, a semicolon, and then the other information here. So when it's unrelated, you do one of these two formats. And if the information is related, then basically it's just a single set of parentheses, just like you have this example here. So if the information is related, then you just use a single set of parentheses with the information separated by a semicolon. So let's get to just some examples. Many scholars have commented on this Hebrew word in Isaiah chapter 7. This Hebrew word here, and then this reference. So effectively, you have unrelated information, right? So you could do this situation here where you have two, you have back-to-back parentheses with one information, in one and one in the other. Well, that's what I'm saying. This is unrelated information or unrelated material option 1, or you could have the same thing just up here. This is the same sentence. You could have the unrelated material in a single set of parentheses separated by a semicolon. So this would be unrelated material option 2. And then an example of where you have related information. Psychologists recently studied secondary effects of verbal abuse. And this is actually these are actually two source citations. So the related information is because they're both source citations. So you have one source citation, then you have a semicolon, you have the other source citation, but effectively this information is related. And since the information is related, it goes into a single set of parentheses separated by a semicolon. So in the second fine point, related, I'm just saying related information. So the last fine point about parentheses I want to cover is, how do you do parentheses inside parentheses? Well, this is actually, use brackets for parentheses inside parentheses. You could say, well, maybe this rule deserves to be under the rule of brackets, but since most people probably are going to come to the parentheses section wondering how they do parentheses with inside parentheses, well, you use brackets. So here's an example, the Atlanta sales team, and then someone decided to put this parenthetical, effectively a parenthetical comment in the middle of a sentence. We outperformed them last month. Whoops. The Atlanta sales team thinks they beat us, but you have this mid-sentence parenthetical comments. We outperformed them last month. And then maybe someone doesn't know what last month was, because maybe this is some quote from months ago. Someone decided to put inside parentheses July, meaning what month they were referring to. And so since this is parentheses with inside parentheses, you would place July in brackets. Another example is the most comprehensive style guide, and this is just a parenthetical comment, the Chicago Manual Style. And then once again, someone's now going to put a parentheses with inside parentheses saying abbreviated CMOS. So since this is parentheses with inside parentheses, you use brackets for parentheses with inside parentheses. So you would do parentheses here, bracket, bracket, parentheses. So the most comprehensive style guide, the Chicago Manual Style, abbreviated CMOS, sells used for $50. So that's how you do parentheses with inside parentheses. That's it for this video. If you want to get notifications for this series, please click subscribe. If you like the video, please hit like, and check out links to books and videos in the description.